Aemeath Star Trail will spectacle her enemies, and today I'm here to tell you how to build her best. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. It should be noted that all footage recorded in this video was recorded on the media server, so things may have been subject to change in the final release version. In terms of the echo set that you would want to use on your Aemeath, that would be Trailblazing Star. It was built specifically for her kit and has a really strong 5-piece passive, that being that no matter which mode you're using on your Aemeath, you're going to be getting 20% extra crit rate and 20% extra fusion damage bonus, which is really good, especially the crit rate, which also just makes her a more comfortable unit to build in general. Sigillum is going to be the main echo that you would use on this set. Otherwise, you can actually use Lupa's signature set, that being Flaming Clawprint. It is going to be worse than Aemeath's signature set, especially considering how broken the extra crit rate is on that, but if you don't have a good Aemeath set yet, then you can use Lupa's set in the meantime, just so that you can have something to equip on her. Though do note that if you don't have anything for your Aemeath and you're planning to use Lupa in her teams, then that's going to be a little bit awkward because they're going to be in the same team and they obviously can't share a set then, so just be aware of that. But if you don't intend to use the Gladiator within Aemeath's teams, then you should be fine and you can use Lupa set on her. It's pretty nice for mono fusion teams because it gives everybody 15% fusion percent, and of course it gives Aemeath herself liberation damage bonus, which is the main reason as to why this set is viable on her in the first place, and her main echo here would be Lioness of Glory. Though if you don't have either of those, then you can just use the classic fusion set. I will be honest, it's not going to be that good on her, as Molten Rift is just kind of a dated set, especially considering that damage bonus percent can easily become oversaturated on Aemeath, which I'm going to touch on a little bit later. But even so, if you have some good pieces for it lying around and you don't have a complete Aemeath set yet, you can use this in the meantime. And the main echo you would want to use would be Nightmare Inferno Rider. As for Aemeath's main stats, okay, well, there are actually some different avenues that you can take here, namely in regards to the 3 cost. What you would ideally go for would be 4 cost crit percent, 3 cost fusion percent, and then either 3 cost fusion percent or attack percent. It's going to depend, which I'm going to discuss in a moment, 1 cost attack percent and 1 cost attack percent. So essentially, with Aemeath, she can very easily oversaturate on damage bonus percent from additional buffs such as Linny's own signature weapon, and of course, numerous of her echo sets that provide her with fusion damage bonus. In fact, all of them provide her with some fusion damage bonus. So all around, this particular unit has a ton of access to damage bonus, which means that she can easily oversaturate on it. So in what situations would you want to go for attack or fusion? Well, if you have Linny's signature weapon, then generally you want to go for fusion percent and attack percent. If your Aemeath is on her signature weapon, then you want to go for fusion percent and attack percent, because she's once again giving herself quite a lot of damage bonus. If you're using Emerald of Genesis on her, the standard sword, then you would want to go for double fusion percent, because then her damage bonus percent is less oversaturated. And another thing that I should mention is that if your Linny is not on her signature and she is using Static Mist and your Aemeath is on Emerald of Genesis, then once again, you go for double fusion percent. Basically, the less sources of damage percent you have, the more you want to go for fusion percent, whereas if you have plenty of sources of damage bonus percent of any kind, then you would go for double fusion percent. On paper, it honestly looks like a literally non-zero increase, and that's just because it depends on too many variables. How much damage bonus percent do you have? Not that much, then go for fusion percent. If you have plenty, then go for attack percent. And that is what's going to make the substantial difference. As for Aemeath stat goals, simple. On signature, go for 2,400 attack, 75 to 270 crit rate and damage, and 117% ER. And on Emerald of Genesis, go for 2,100 attack, 75 to 270 crit rate and damage, and 117% ER. The reason Emerald of Genesis has lower attack requirements than on Sig is because on Emerald of Genesis, you generally run double fusion percent. Generally, I recommend trying to get Trailblazing Star as soon as you possibly can, simply because 20% crit rate is just such a nice additional bonus. It doesn't seem like it's that much better than the other sets on paper, but trust me, it is going to provide you with a lot more consistency. Yet which weapons shall this starlit singer use to save the world? Well, her best in slot is obviously going to be her signature weapon. Everbright Polestar does provide a lot for her, all attribute damage bonus, which is very nice, and whenever she inflicts Twin Rupture, Shifting or Fusion Burst, her ult is going to ignore 32% of the defense and 10% of the fusion res on enemies, which is absolutely bonkers, not to mention that she also gives herself some crit rate, which, if stacked with her signature set, already provides you with 44.3% crit rate, not including anything from her substats, which is very, very nice. So all around, this is a great, valuable signature weapon for her. But I've gotta glaze Emerald of Genesis for a minute, because for a Wuthering Waves DPS, Aemeath doesn't actually need her signature weapon all that much. You can easily get by just using EOG. It is only a 16% decrease. It provides her with an equal amount of crit rate to her signature weapon, gives her plenty of energy recharge, which can help cover for her ER requirements, and also gives her a nice amount of attack. So all around, this is a splendidly well-rounded weapon choice for her, and you don't need to pull Sig in order for Aemeath to perform. To be honest, on Emerald of Genesis, she is still a very impressive, powerful, formidable DPS. Now, I will say that her signature weapon is still worth it if you want her top performance, especially considering how powerful this character is, but if you want to pass on her Sig, or if you don't have any teammates for her and you feel like you need to pull Lupa instead, go ahead and do that, nothing wrong with doing that, and getting Lupa if you have no Aemeath teammates is going to be more valuable than getting her signature, and then having no teammates for her. So ultimately, an excellent choice that you can use if you're unable to get her Sig right now, or if you simply just don't want to pull her signature because you would rather save your astrikes for something else. She definitely is more accessible when it comes to weapons compared to plenty of other Wuthering Waves DPSs, which is really nice. Now, I'm gonna be honest, every other weapon isn't really worth considering because Emerald of Genesis is a permanently available free standard weapon that is her second best option while also not really being that big of a drastic decrease compared to her signature. So while you can use any of the other options that are listed here, you can see for yourself that Emerald of Genesis is simply better than all of them, and it's a standard weapon that you can get at literally any time, provided that you have the standard pulls to do so. EOG is also just an excellent sword in general, so I wouldn't be surprised if a majority of players did try and get at least one copy during their time, so you can easily skip her weapon and just use this instead, though I do want to remind you that in Double Pawn Matrix, weapons cannot be shared, so if you care about maxing out your score there and your EOG is already in use, then maybe her signature weapon is more of a consideration for you, but just know that it's a non-essential but very nice upgrade, and all of her options, while they can be used, they're not necessarily going to be as good as Emerald of Genesis, which is literally the budget-friendly option, so I am going to point you towards that instead. Yet who shall be joining Aemeath on her star-chasing journey? Well, the thing with Aemeath is that right now, her Toon Break mode is significantly better than her Fusion Burst mode, so I am primarily going to focus on that, but I will mention her Fusion Burst teams near the end of this section. The first combo that I want to talk about is her Toon Break combo, that being the Toon Break core, Linny and Mornier. Aemeath's outro skill is able to provide 10% all damage amplification to all resonators in the team whenever she swaps out, but if you have Toon users in your team, then that goes up to 20% instead. So you're making even more use out of Aemeath's kit in this instance. Lenny's outro skill also provides Liberation damage percent, which is the majority of Aemeath's damage output, and also Toon Breaks in this team are freaking strong. Spam them whenever you can. It's pretty clear now that Aemeath was the Toon Break DPS that was supposed to be used with these two characters that came out first, and let me tell you now, this is the current strongest team in the game. If you manage to get both Linny and Mornier, even if you don't have their signature weapons, consider yourself very lucky, because now you have yourself the best team in the game. This is essentially the definitive Aemeath team, at least as of now, and I cannot recommend it enough. I will say that if you don't have Mornier, you can indeed swap her out and use Shorekeeper instead. This is still going to be an extremely high-performing team, and even if you don't have Mornier to complete the double Toon Break core, even just having Linny for your Aemeath is still going to provide you with one of the best teams in the game, and still going to provide you with one of the top-performing TOA teams in the game. So I wouldn't worry too much if you're missing that part of the core, because yes, Shorekeeper is still going to be a viable replacement, even if she is not the absolute best available option. And I should mention the same applies to Linny. If you don't have her, but you do have Mornier, then you can still slot somebody like Lupa in the second slot, and you can still succeed. The nice thing is that because Aemeath is a fusion character, and Lupa benefits characters the most whenever every teammate is fusion, consider that Mornier in this team is also fusion, and that means Lupa is able to fully leverage her buffs. And because Lupa is going to be running alongside Aemeath, you're then able to go and pick her up, and then complete her team. Or at the very least, complete her team until you're able to get Linny. I wouldn't worry too much if you missed out on one of the core components of a double Toon Break core, because while that is definitively going to form the best team in the game now, I will say that playing Lupa with Aemeath still feels plenty strong, and is an excellent way to circumvent the issue of having no Linny by your side. Another team that I should actually mention is Budget Monofusion. This would feature Mortefi and Lupa, and the main function of Mortefi here is simply just to be another fusion character so that Lupa can fully take advantage of her buffs, and that is going to be more efficient than using a non-fusion character here. And it's also a nice way to compensate if you do not have a Mornier by your side. This team is still going to perform quite well, honestly, because that's the thing. Aemeath is a character that has a lot of inherent strength, so I wouldn't worry too much if you don't have the absolute best possible setup for her, because she is still going to perform very nicely. I will say that Mortefi's heavy attack buffs aren't really going to do anything for her, but you can at least put him on Moonlit Clouds, give him a Static Mist, and he is still going to be able to support Aemeath in some way, shape, and form, and you're still maxing out Lupa's buff potential, which is very effective. And then I should mention Aemeath's free-to-play budget team. I'm gonna be honest, it's not very good, and it is being completely carried by Aemeath's own inherent strength. That would be featuring the lady herself, Jianshin, and then Shorekeeper. The unfortunate thing is that Jianshin is simply a very clunky unit pre-S2. Now, if you have Jianshin's S2, and you put her on a concerto-generating weapon, then ultimately it's not as bad as it could be, but if you have an S0 Jianshin, she is basically the only real budget option that you have if you don't have Lupa to run the Mortefi team, and it's honestly just not really that good. The main reason you'd be using Jianshin is simply because she provides liberation damage bonus, and we don't really have a 4-star character that can do the same any faster. So you're kind of just trapped using Jianshin, and it's just not very good. Shorekeeper is a perfectly fine Aemeath teammate, but Jianshin is just not it. Her rotation is just too slow. You can make it work at S2, but I'm gonna be honest, at S0, it's not really all that. And if you would like your Aemeath to perform, you do ideally want at least one premium teammate for her, but Jianshin can at least suffice if you're unable to do so. Some other Lupa teams that you can use would be Brant, Wuthering Waves, and Lupa. I actually find this team to be pretty comfortable considering that Brant himself obviously provides some healing and shielding, and he also does some good damage himself, not to mention that Lupa into Brant is just a good synergy in general. So this ends up being a really fun to play, high damaging team that's also quite comfortable and easy to use, because Brant isn't exactly a complicated character to get the hang of. So all around, I like this team, and if you have Brant and his signature weapon, it actually ends up being a pretty formidable contender. Good team. The Changli variant of this team isn't as strong as the Brant Wuthering Waves variant of this team, but it's still highly viable and still very fun. It's also a fun way to revive your Changli if you don't particularly have a use for her at the moment. It's basically just a nice way where you can use a character that's stronger than Mortefi, but not necessarily as good as the other options if you don't have the other options, especially if you have a well-built Changli. So all around, she is a great character here, especially if you have Lupa. It should also be noted that the outro skills of both Brant and Changli are actually pretty useful for Aemeath, because Brant provides fusion percent, whereas Changli provides both fusion percent and liberation damage percent. So all around, you actually kill a couple of birds with one stone here. Damage, buffing, and being able to use a viable teammate. I will say that Linny Lupa is a team that can work, but my issue with it is that you don't really have an incentive to use it. You could just replace Lupa with Shorekeeper in this instance, and then do a whole lot better, and get a top performing team. So honestly, I wouldn't really use this, because Shorekeeper is just gonna get the job done better here, and know that Lupa's value is best taken advantage of in teams where you are using only fusion units. As for Aemeath's negative status teams, I'll be honest, her Fusion Burst playstyle is really weak at the minute, and it isn't really that much better than Gion at the moment. That's the type of not that great we're talking about here. So if you were hoping for Fusion Burst Aemeath to be really good for Chisa, that's not really the case at the minute, but I will still discuss the available teams that you can use to clear with it. One of those would be using Linny and Chisa. It's not really going to be anything crazy, because we just don't have a great second slot teammate at the minute for Fusion Burst, and until then, this team isn't really going to be that good. I do imagine that Chisa is going to be an excellent third slot teammate when that day does eventually come, but as of now, this is just a team that you can try if you happen to have Chisa, you have a Linny, and you want to see what Fusion Burst Aemeath is all about. The rotation is the exact same as Tomb Break Aemeath, so it's easy to try at the very least. But all around, I don't necessarily recommend it. It's just not very strong at the moment. And you can also use Lupa and Chisa if you decide to pull both of those characters on the banner alongside Aemeath. though once again, you would rather just go for some other character, like use Mortefi in place of Chisa, use Lupa as the third slot, Mortefi in the second slot, use Toon Break mode, and then just do a whole lot more damage instead. Just wait for now with the Fusion Burst mode. It will eventually be good, I'm sure of it, but as of now, it's not really that useful compared to your Toon Break teams. Example teams for Toon Break mode include Pink Nanami, Lenny, Mornier, Pink Nanami, Lenny, Shorekeeper, Star Trail, Lupa, Mornier, Star Trail, Mortefi, Lupa, Star Chaser, Jianshin, Shorekeeper, Exostrider Pilot, Changli, Lupa, and there's the same team with Brent Wuthering Waves instead. And there's of course the Lenny Lupa team, but I don't necessarily recommend it. In terms of our Fusion Burst teams, although I don't necessarily recommend it right now, if you still want to give it a try, then in that case you would use Lenny and Chisa, otherwise Lupa and Chisa, but generally I recommend staying away from it. Yet how do you play Aemeath? Alright, so, she has one optimal rotation, which is fairly tight, and then she has two other rotations that are a little bit more loose, but they're still fairly tight. First, I'm going to teach you the optimal rotation, and then I will teach you the two other rotations, because they do offer some different playstyles. So for Aemeath's optimal rotation, intro in, basic, skill, basic, 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 alt, skill, basic, 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 skill, heavy attack, alt. Doing the rotation in this exact way should provide you with just enough Forte to be able to cast every required ability in a rotation in order to max out the stars above her Forte bar. Now as for her other rotation, which is a little bit more flexible, intro in, basic, basic, skill, basic, 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 alt, skill, basic, 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 skill, heavy, alt. The main difference here is simply that you do another basic at the start of the rotation, which just generally makes it a little bit more comfortable to play because then you're guaranteed to always have enough Forte to cast all of her abilities. The optimal rotation allows you to do so as well, I should be very clear about that. It's just that this allows you to make some more mistakes. You can generally just basic a little bit more if you need some more Forte. That's the general rule of thumb. And then there is a more front-loaded rotation, where you can do a lot more damage all at once, but it's not the optimal rotation. Either way, it is still a good one. So let's run over it. Intro in. Alt. Basic. Basic. Skill. Basic. 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 Skill. Basic. 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 Skill. Heavy, alt. The way that I like to see this rotation is that it's quote-unquote the other way around, because Aemeath generally has such dynamic gameplay with being able to change between herself and her mech. So, all around, she has a couple of different rotations that you can choose from. I recommend you try and learn the first, but either way, no matter which one you choose, she's going to be able to perform quite nicely. As for Aemeath's Forte priority, simple, go for this. Her Liberation is the vast majority of where her damage comes from, so you definitely want to prioritize it first, and then you want to go for her Forte. Because she's going to be a new release, we haven't been able to pre-farm for her boss materials, so it's likely that you're going to have to prioritize which abilities to level up for the first couple of weeks, in which case I would recommend that you go for her Liberation and Forte first above all else. After unlocking all of her inherent abilities and stat nodes, of course. Do you wish to fund this lovely musician's music? Then let's talk sequences. Her S1 is a pretty nice damage increase, and if you end up stumbling upon it, or if you buy it from the sequence shop, then all around, I would say that it's decently substantial. It's nothing that you need to go out of your way for, but it does greatly increase her instant response heavy attack, which is a heavy attack that she deals whenever she has 4 stars with her Forte bar. It also gives that particular ability some better grouping. Her S2 also greatly increases her damage output because it increases the multipliers on those special enhanced skills that she's able to do. And generally, that's what this S2 is balanced around, those enhanced skills. No matter which one you use, the benefits of them have been increased with this. And then you get a DPS that does over 100k DPS. If you have S2 R1, she is genuinely hitting those numbers, which, if you don't know what that is, that's actually crazy. For reference, an S6 Zani, all the way back in 2.3, would have been doing 118k DPS. So S2 Aemeath has got hands. It's really, really good. Her S3 mostly focuses on enhancing her ult, which is really, really nice and strong, and it also just makes her feel more satisfying in that sense, considering her ult is so cool. But all around, this is a very strong S3, and if you decide to go for it, you will be greatly pleased. Her S4 is mostly nice for the team's damage because it provides everybody with 20% all attribute damage bonus for 30 seconds, which is indeed very nice, though do note for Aemeath herself that's not really going to be that substantial. As we've already discussed, she tends to be pretty oversaturated when it comes to damage bonus percent. Her S5 is mostly some QOL, it's nothing really to write home about. Moving on. Aemeath's S6 is easily the best S6 in Wuthering Waves. Like, it's not even close. The power level of Aemeath S6 is hilarious. It's honestly comical how good an S6 Aemeath is. Let's just say you're gonna be utterly blowing up the game if you end up getting this. She gets fed with a crud ton of stats, and targets take 40% more Resonance Liberation damage from her, which, if you forgot, she kind of primarily deals Resonance Liberation damage, so yeah, good S6, good S6. This character honestly kinda blew me away whenever I was able to try her properly for the first time. This character has to have some of the most fun gameplay that Wuthering Waves has ever seen. Kuro Games absolutely killed it when it came to her rotation, her sound effects, her damage output, her character design, everything. I really like this character. I think everyone really likes this character. There is a lot to love here, and I can understand why she has absolutely taken the hearts of everybody by storm, because goodness me, it is hard to hate this character, and it is hard to hate her really cool moveset. She's obviously the best DPS in the game at the moment, but to be honest, considering how Kuro Games is marketing her, I kind of expected that. So yeah, she is gonna be the powerhouse around here for quite a while, so if you care about meta, I definitely do recommend her. She's very strong. Very fun gameplay, and I really don't have anything bad to say about this unit. Awesome, awesome character. Good job, Kuro Games. Hopefully this video was able to get your Aemeath vanquishing her enemies out of existence with the Exostrider. This has been Juice, signing out, and please, Kuro, in some way, shape, or form, can you please confirm this character to be Nanami? This seems to be a PGR XP, and I want to believe it so bad.